In the spring of 2009, when Daniel McGonigle found out the Massachusetts Senate had unanimously passed a bad public health emergency bill, and I can say from having fought with him, it involved forcibly inoculating people, and if they didn't want to do that, they could haul you off to a camp. It was that bad. Without going into a lot of detail, it was that bad. Well, Dan and myself and Dave and some other people fought this off, but it was only a handful of people up in the State House, and Dan was there every day. He walked into every single office and said, "This tyranny will not stand." It just takes a very determined minority. He did that for you and you and you and you, and they said, "Oh, they can only give you the shot if it's declared an emergency." Well, guess what? That very fall, it was declared an emergency by both Barack Obama and our illustrious governor. And because of Dan and a few other people, that was not made into a law, and it forced us to get a shot. I said a little bit more, but I feel like I had to say that because he's too modest to say it himself. Dan is the editor of the forthcoming Power of the Sword book, focused on the common defense of rights and the necessity for restoring the militia of the several states composed of we the people. He is one of this state's foremost experts on the first clause of the Second Amendment, which is just as important as the second. Without further ado, please give a warm welcome this Patriots Day to this Patriot, Daniel Vincent McGonigle.
Good afternoon, we the people. 1772, Samuel Adams and the Boston Town Meeting's newly formed Committee of Correspondence issued a report. From that report, quote, "Government was instituted for the purposes of common defense. The grand end of civil government is for the support, protection, and defense of essential natural rights, principle of which are life, liberty, and property. If men should renounce or give up any essential natural right, the eternal law of reason would absolutely vacate such renunciation. The right of freedom being the gift of God Almighty, it is not in the power of man to alienate this gift and voluntarily become a slave." On December 16, 1773, the Boston Tea Party. 1774, Governor Gay sent his British Army to break up a town meeting in Salem, Massachusetts. 3,000 militiamen repelled the British Army and forced them to retreat. The powder alarm seizure of hundreds of barrels of gunpowder in Charlestown on September 1st, 74, resulted in 20,000 militia gathering. Governor Gage ordered warrantless searches for arms and ammunition. According to the Boston Gazette, the popular newspaper in Boston, town of Boston at that time, all of General Gage's offenses, what most irritated the people was seizing their arms and ammunition. After Massachusetts Bay's governor ordered the elected representatives not to meet and therefore not be sworn in, they met anyway, and 2 days later, October 7, 1774, they resolved themselves into a provincial congress. Their first major order of business, quote, "to consider what is necessary to be done for the defense and safety of the province," unquote. After accepting the committee report, quote, "resolved that be a committee of safety," unquote, 24/7 civil power over the militia. A receiver general was appointed. Therefore, the provincial congress took over both the power of the sword and the power of the purse. Constitutional scholar Dr. Edwin Vieira Jr. on these two vital powers. With the power of the purse and the power of the sword firmly in we the people's hands, all other governmental powers, as well as all disabilities, that is, limitations on governmental powers, fall to we the people's control as well. Dr. Vieira said at Faneuil Hall a few years ago, "Take the constitutional high ground. Our pastors say, take the moral high ground. So there's the necessities, the moral and constitutional high ground, the powers of the purse, and the power of the sword. When the British Army attacked on this day in 1775 in Lexington, and then went on to conquer, the able-bodied militia and Minutemen of Middlesex County were well regulated, and they collectively defended their rights to life, liberty, and property. The common defense is enumerated in the Articles of Confederation of Perpetual Union and in the preamble in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Section 13, Virginia Declaration of Rights, 1776, quote, that a well-regulated militia composed of the body of the people trained to arms is a proper, natural, and safe defense of a free state, unquote. The militia, quote, the militia is the whole people. George Mason co-authored the Second Amendment at the Virginia Convention. Article 6, Section 4, Articles of Confederation. Every state shall always keep up a well-regulated, disciplined militia, sufficiently armed and included, unquote. The pre-existing militia structure was maintained by the founders and enumerated in the new Constitution. The militia is cited 6 times in the Constitutional Bill of Rights, and it was meant to be preserved in perpetuity. Edwin Vieira said, well-regulated militia means well-organized according to statute. And the militia of the several states is meant to be a perpetual institution, unquote. Another reference for well-regulated militia, cited in the second, meaning, you can go to Article 1, Section 8 again. Well-organized command structure, well-armed, well-accoutered, disciplined and trained. Okay, when we've got all that, then what do? We muster on the green. And then what? And then what do? We elect our non-commissioned officers. We elect them. The militia of the several states is enumerated in Article 2, Section 2. The militia of the states is in the early Federal Militia Acts. The militia of the counties is in the early Provincial and State Militia Acts. Webster's 1828, definition and force, to put into execution. Article 1, Section 8 again, the militia is to execute the laws, to repel invasions, infringements, etc. Okay, there is your Constitution self-enforcement mechanism. The ultimate security so that your right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed or invaded. From a radio interview of constitutional scholar Dr. Vieira, transcribed by me with a little paraphrasing. Quote, looking at the structure of the Constitution, there's a number of pillars that are holding up this building. The building's architect will tell the building's users, whatever you do, don't remove one of those structural pillars, because if you do, at some point this building will come down. Here are these structural pillars in the Constitution. The Congress, the President, the Supreme Court, the states, and we the people. We the people in 2 capacities, as the electorate and as the militia. What is the pillar that we don't have? We don't have these militia. We've taken out the most important. The Constitution says it's necessary. We've taken out this necessary support column from the building. And what can we expect to happen? The building's going to come down. And it's coming down because we now see the failure of the other pillars. We see the failure of Congress, the failure of the President, the failure of the Supreme Court. We see the failure of the people as voters. So we're really depending on this last pillar. And where is it? It's not there. That's the one that the architect told us was necessary. That's the one that might hold up the building just long enough to save it. But it's not there. And that is why I say, as Dr. Vieira is saying, that's why Dr. Vieira says to people, this is your last chance, ladies and gentlemen. The book of instructions tells you what you need. You see the thing collapsing on you. What's necessary at this stage is to revitalize put some vital force back into these militia institutions, because this is the only way you're going to inject the people back into the political system with sufficient force, potentially to regain control over it. It can't be done at the congressional level. It has to be done at the state level, and it has to be done in whatever state or states are capable of passing the legislation, unquote. That's Dr. Vieira. To that end, grassroots organizing starts with you in your precinct, in your neighborhood, communicating with your legislator and your sheriff. 18th and 19th century federal militia acts also confirmed marshals and sheriffs are to, quote, execute the laws, unquote. So let's reverse the current direction that the government is taking us across this country and protect sheriff's powers. Thank you. To provide for the common defense of rights and secure the blessings of liberty, it is necessary to restore we the people as the intended guarantors of ours and our posterity's liberty and freedom. That restoration requires revitalizing the well-regulated militia of the several states composed of we the people. Quote, for a people who are free and who mean to remain so. A well-organized and armed militia is the best security. Thomas Jefferson. I ask you, and I hope I get a positive response, is it not our duty to restore this constitutional structure? Yes! Do we want to, and are we going to, put that main support column back in there? We will! Yes! Okay. Huzzah!